Uh, Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. I always appreciate your presence. So I have several news to share with you or to give you updates. And for today's October the 6th, 2022, I will start with a video from Africa News talking about Ethiopian government accepting the peace talk invitation by African Union, which is planned to be taken to be going on or to be take place in South Africa. So I'll start with that one. Then also Safaricom Ethiopia begin operation in Addis Ababa, plus William Ruto first visit as Kenya's president to Addis Ababa, plus other updates will follow. So thank you again for coming back. Let's listen to the videos I selected for today's update.
Ethiopia announced on Wednesday that it had accepted an invitation from the African Union to hold peace talks with rebels in the northern region of Tigray. In a statement, the Ethiopian Government Communication Service, GCS, said the AU had communicated in its invitation the date and venue of the talks. Tigray forces has yet to respond to the invitation for talks this weekend in South Africa, which would be the first formal negotiations between the two sides since the outbreak of war in November 2020. No details on other participants were released either, including whether neighboring Eritrea, whose army supports the Ethiopian government forces, had been invited. Tigrayan rebels have always said they would not accept Asmara's presence at any talks. The AU reportedly set up a troika of mediators made up of former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as former South African Vice President Phumzile Mlambo Nguka. After a 5-month truce that raised hopes for peace negotiations, fighting resumed on August 24 in northern Ethiopia between Tigrayan rebels and the Federal Ethiopian Army.
Hope, where are you hiding? I search for you in the seconds, the minutes of each.
Okay, one more video on
President William Ruto
Safaricom
says Kenya supports the African Union's ongoing peace initiative to restore normalcy in Ethiopia's Tigray region. President Ruto is in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for the launch of the Safaricom Ethiopia. The head of state met Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and held talks on trade relations, regional political stability, and ICT. And as Citizen TV's Ayub Abdikadir reports, this is President Ruto's first tour of the region. President William Ruto was received at Bole International Airport in Addis Ababa by Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed for the launch of Safaricom Ethiopia. Safaricom Ethiopia is a subsidiary of Kenya's mobile telecommunication company. According to the company, it has already successfully rolled out its networks across different parts of Ethiopia.
And on behalf of the people of Kenya, I'd like to convey out of gratitude to you, Your Excellency, to the great people of Ethiopia for making it possible for our two countries to do business together.
During talks with the Prime Minister Ahmed, President Ruto said Nairobi supports ongoing African Union peace efforts led by former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo to reconcile warring parties, reiterating Ethiopia's role in regional stability. The government of Ethiopia and Tigray rebels accepted an invitation for peace talks in South Africa that will see former President Uhuru Kenyatta participate. The head of state called for coexistence, saying it is the cornerstone for transformation of the African continent. During the meeting, the two leaders agreed on ways to fight terrorism and violent extremism in the Horn of Africa region. Both Kenya and Ethiopia have troops in Somalia as part of the United Nations Stabilization Mission. They further agreed to bolster trade relations, a move that will see Kenya import wheat from Ethiopia, whose yields have increased substantially.
Diplomacy is good, but economic diplomacy is better. One of the biggest investments by Safaricom, led by Safaricom Kenya, an investment in billions of dollars. One of its own kind, as I said, the largest ever investment made by a Kenyan company outside Kenya. And we are very proud that that investment is in our neighborhood because Ethiopia is equally our home.
President Ruto called on Prime Minister Abiy to make use of the Lamu port as the home port for the southern part of Ethiopia. He also lauded the Prime Minister Abiy's investment in ICT, saying the landscape will support regional economic growth, and challenged other African countries to prioritize research, saying it will help equally in the growing of the continent's economy. President Ruto also underscored the importance of Pan-Africanism, saying Africa has come of age. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Okay.
Iranian.
I will come back to the other videos shared from different media. So that's Kenyan president's visit to Ethiopia, and also Safaricom Africa, Safaricom Ethiopia starting operation. So the purpose maybe is a double, to open the business and also to talk about the challenge Ethiopia facing at the current time. So thank you, William Roto, for stopping by. We appreciate extensive engagement between neighboring countries. Kenya is like a home. We have been through Kenya on the way to different parts of the world, to United States, England, and there, the hospitality is appreciated. We appreciate the hospitality despite some minor challenges from the police. So they are our neighbors, and their engagement with Ethiopia should be a priority, should be appreciated. So we thank Kenyans for their hospitalities, for opening Safaricom business in Ethiopia, and also we also encourage them to talk about the issue. Oromos are suffering in Ethiopia. So Abiy Ahmed tried in the past, to eradicate oil operation in the border area with some kind of engagement with Kenya. That's a wrong one. Oil has legitimate concern about Ethiopia and about Oromos in general, the majority in Ethiopia. That also should be resolved. It's not about Abiy Ahmed Tigray issue only. No. That's a major concern in Ethiopia. If the world or Kenyans or African Union cannot resolve the Oromo issue, there will be no peace in Ethiopia. So that, for now, it looks like it's ignored, but there will be no peace in Ethiopia, no stability in Ethiopia unless the global community, African Union, and others resolve the conflict in Oromia region. It's a silent conflict, but destroying the lives of so many Oromos in Oromia region. So it should be considered. So the silence is not acceptable, and the OLA is not a terrorist organization in which Abiy Ahmed tried to portray and have support to destroy it. So that will not work. And the Tigray region also accepted, as you heard, this invitation by African Union and others. And I hope it will be successful. I hope they will sign some kind of deal to end the hostility in that region. Tigrayans are bravely defending the invasion, unimaginable invasion, huge number of soldiers from Eritrea, from Amara Fano, Amara militia, Oromo militia, Benishangul militia, Ethiopia National Defense, Ethiopia Federal Police, Abiy Ahmed Special Commandos, drones, airstrikes, unimaginable invasion. They are resisting, even they are, conducting counter-offensive against these invaders. It's unimaginable. I don't know how Tigrayans, survive all this. In addition to the siege they encounter in the last 2+ years. No water, no electricity, no food, no medicine, no banking system, no international relation, no domestic relation. They are siege, they are under the blockade. Despite all this, they also encounter this heavy invasion by Eritrean forces and the forces I mentioned. And it's unbelievable bravery. So I hope that will end. I hope they will sign some kind of deal in these upcoming peace talks. So we pray for them. And we will also ask the international community, the African Union, not to ignore the Oromo issues, not to ignore what is going on in Oromia, especially the Western Wolaga region is out of control. They are suffering since Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. Nobody knows. No internet in that region, no phone service, no other means of communication. They are really suffering. So we need the international community not to ignore the situation in Oromia if they want to peace and stability in Ethiopia. Okay, so let's continue with the other news. Okay, this is about Tigray region government says it accepts AU invitation and request clarification. In a statement issued this evening, the government of Tigray regional state said it had accepted an invitation for peace talks extended by the African Union, but it requests clarification on who had been invited as participants, observers, or guarantors, as well as the roles that the AU envisaged for the international community, and the logistics such as travel and the security arrangements for our negotiating team. We are ready to send our negotiation team to South Africa. Even so, considering that we are not consulted prior to the issuance of the invitation, we need clarification to some of the following issues to establish as auspicious start for the peace talks, such as whether there will be additional actors to be invited as participants, observers, or guarantors. Reads the letter signed off by Debretsion Gebremichael, PhD, President of Tigray Regional State. Furthermore, the letter addressed to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, stated that it would be helpful to the peace process to know if cessation of hostilities is part of your substantive agenda. It comes in the heels of a letter of invitation dated 1 October and signed off by the AU chairperson Moussa Faki and sent to President Debretsion, inviting him to peace talks scheduled to take place in South Africa from Sunday, 8 October 2022. AU's letter stated that the peace talks between the two parties is expected to deliberate on the guiding principles, agenda issues, modalities, format, and timeline for the negotiated state settlement aimed at laying foundation for a structured and sustained mediation between the federal government of Ethiopia and the TPLF towards durable resolution of the conflict. The federal government of Ethiopia said this morning that it has accepted AU's official invitation for peace talks, which it said was consistent with the Ethiopia's government's prior position. It is known that the government of Ethiopia has expressed that talks should only be mediated by the African Union and they should be held without any preconditions. The federal government has previously said it was ready to talks anytime, anywhere, and that talks should begin without preconditions. In a statement released on 11 September, the Tigray government said it was prepared to participate in a robust peace process under the auspices of the African Union. It added that the Tigray government was ready to abide by an immediate and mutually agreed cessation of hostilities in order to create a conducive atmosphere, and named Getachew Reda, advisor of the Tigray region's president, Debretsion Gebremichael PhD, and Lieutenant General Tzadkan Gebretinsai, former chief of staff of the Ethiopian Defense Forces, as its negotiating team, ready to be deployed without delay. This is the first official attempt at bringing the two sides together when a 5-month truce collapsed after the two sides resumed militarized hostilities on 24 August. Credit at this standard. So they have, you can also check their official letter on Tigray External Affairs Office, is the acceptance of the Tigray region for this peace talk. It's also sent copies to Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President Fumuzi Mlambo Neguka, Hannah Tet, United Nations Security Expert, Michael Hammer, U.S. State Secretary of State, Annette Weber, EU, and Mohammed Guyo, IGAD. So these are, the organization or individuals or different officers received an official copy of Tigray region's response for this peace talk. So as I said, I wish them success, but Prosperity Party led by Abiy Ahmed is, they are not trustworthy. As you know, they are still, the invasion continue, the bombardment continue, and despite, accepting this peace talk, the operation didn't stop. The operation should cease immediately to give this peace talk a chance. So, but, the Abiy Ahmed thinks they have the advantage of human power and all other resources. So they try to force the Tigray region surrender to Abiy Ahmed's agenda. The following is European Union resolution on Ethiopia, Haiti, and Myanmar. Let's see what they say about Ethiopia. On Thursday, the European Parliament adopted 3 resolutions on the respect for human rights in Haiti, Myanmar, and Ethiopia. The recent humanitarian and human rights situation in Tigray, Ethiopia, notably that of children. Parliament reiterated its urgent plea for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for ceasefire in Tigray and the neighboring regions in Ethiopia without preconditions. Members of European Parliament want full, safe, and sustained humanitarian access to all those in the area that are affected by the conflict. They strongly condemn the deliberate targeting of civilians by all parties and the reported recruitment of children by certain actors. They recall that deliberate attacks on civilians, the targeting of children, and the recruitment and the use of child soldiers constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. In addition, the text notes that as a result of Ethiopia's civil war, 1 out of 3 Tigrayan children under the age of 5 and half of all pregnant and breastfeeding women are malnourished, and a total of 1.39 million children in the region are unable to go to school. The resolution further expressed its support for all diplomatic efforts to end the ongoing conflict within Ethiopia, in particular through African Union mediation, while deeply regretting the fact that the UN Security Council has so far failed to address the situation in Tigray. Members of European Parliament also urge it to take meaningful and decisive action to ensure unhindered humanitarian access, to allow the protection of civilians, and to condemn and end the grave violation of international law and ensure accountability for these atrocities. So that is European Parliament resolution on Ethiopia. They have also the situation in Haiti and Myanmar. Yeah, if you are interested, you can check it out about Myanmar. There's also challenge in Haiti and also the situation in Myanmar, for also known as Burma. That's also very challenging. So, European Union Parliament is a huge organization. It's a huge body which has 705 parliament members from 27 European countries. If they are serious, they can do something about Ethiopia. They can stabilize, they can force Abiy Ahmed to resign. But so far, they are just, expressing concern repeatedly. And that concern is not producing any impact on Abiy Ahmed. He just keep on conducting this endless bloodshed in northern part of Ethiopia, in Oromia, because nobody's taking tough action. The US is also, they have some restriction. It's not tough enough to stop the war. Abiy Ahmed is also just playing, telling them, hey, I'm ready for peace talk, but he's waging the war. and no tough sanction. But the European Union, the European Parliament, if they decide to do something seriously, they can stop the war today. They can stop the war. They can force Abiy Ahmed to resign if they want to. 27 countries with 705 members. They can do. They can make him collapse, really, if they want to. But they are playing smoothly, expressing concern after concern. So nothing can happen. And the United Nations, the same thing because of Russia and China. Nothing can come through United Nations resolution. So Abiy knows, and Abiy supporters know. They can play around and play around with Ethiopians' blood. Let's continue. This one is good one, and we appreciate Ukraine, for donating wheat to Ethiopia and Somalia, despite they are facing challenges. And also German and France offering or providing help to transport and distribute this way. Let's see. German, France offer support to transport, distribute 50,000 tons of wheat donated by Ukraine for Ethiopia and Somalia. Germany and France offered their support to transport and distribute 50,000 tons of wheat donated by Ukraine for Ethiopia and Somalia, two of the countries in the Horn of Africa severely affected by the ongoing drought. According to a statement sent to Addis Standard, the two countries pledged their support, which amounts to $14 million each, through the United Nations World Food Programme, WFP. Germany will cover the costs for the delivery to Ethiopia, while France will cover costs for the delivery to Somalia, the statement said. Ukraine's cabinet minister announced in September that Ukraine would reimburse Ethiopia and Somalia for 11.4 million worth of wheat. In his speech at the general debate of the 77th session of the UN, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that despite all the difficulties caused by the war, Ukraine decided to provide humanitarian aid to Ethiopia and will send an additional amount of Ukrainian wheat for Ethiopian people. The Ukrainian donation is a sign of great solidarity while the country suffers a war of aggression. A state which is itself in need gives generosity to save people in the Horn of Africa from starvation. The grain from Ukraine will enable millions malnourished people in Ethiopia and Somalia to receive a month's ration of grain, the statement from this morning said, adding that the food aid help ensure that families' basic needs are met and that they can spend what little money they have of their own more on local food such as vegetables, fruits, fish, or meat. In Somalia, half of the population is dependent on humanitarian aid. 121,000 people are already in famine. And by December, the number is expected to reach 300,560. In Ethiopia, 24.1 million people are currently affected by drought, and more than 20 million are food insecure nationwide. In total, more than 20.5 million people in drought-affected countries, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya, need food assistance. In 2022, Germany has already earmarked 126 million euros for humanitarian aid in Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya. Last year, it supported the WFP with over 700 million euro, providing food for millions of people. It's also providing more support for health, water supplies, as well as support for disaster management. Similarly, France is supporting the WFP, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, as well as international NGOs such as ACTED, or Action Against Hunger, to improve food security through agriculture and nutrition, as well as livelihoods for vulnerable populations in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia and Somalia are among the countries benefiting from the French Food Assistance Program under the last installment for 2022. Credit again at this standard. So the world is, helping, and we again, concerned citizens media, appreciate Ukraine for donating this grain for Ethiopia and Somalia, despite they are at war, despite they are facing challenge from Russian invasion, and helping Ethiopians to survive from drought. The drought and the starvation. Even the government of Ethiopia denies, not acknowledging, not calling on the international community to help. They are denying. They are telling Ethiopians Ethiopia is ready to export agricultural products. And this attempt by international community is to undermine Ethiopia's progress. That's a reality. And this is a different kind of leadership. And it's a very dangerous one. It can expose many Ethiopians to death and destruction. That's why I call upon Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his close associate to resign. They are misleading the global community, and they are mistreating Ethiopians by hiding hunger and drought, which the world already knows, and they are ready to help. This is not good for Abiy Ahmed and his supporters. European Union to present resolution extending mandates of United Nations rights experts on Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed, his associates, they are unhappy. They are unhappy about these United Nations experts, investigating. They don't want. So now this news is not good for them. They don't want. They want to hide the crimes they committed in Tigray and other parts of Ethiopia. Joseph Borrell, High Representative and Vice President of the European Union, told European Union Parliament members that the bloc will present a resolution at the Human Rights Council renewing the mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia. In a speech delivered on his behalf at the EU Parliament debate on the humanitarian and the human rights situation in Tigray, Mr. Borrell said that the EU was appalled by the gravity and the scale of human rights violation and abuses perpetrated by all parties to the conflict since the beginning. Those allegations must be investigated and accountability ensured. There will be no durable peace, no reconciliation without justice for the victims, he said. I agree. Early in September, Amnesty International Defenders East and Horn African Human Rights Defenders Project, Global Center for the Responsibility to Project, and Human Rights Watch have asked the permanent representatives of member and observer states of the United Nations Human Rights Council to extend the expert commission's mandate on account of, among others, the commission's vital work to ensure scrutiny of the situation in Ethiopia and advance justice, truth, and repatriation for the survivors, victims, and their families. The Geneva-based UN Human Rights Council created the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia on 17 December 2021 and mandated it to investigate allegations of violations and abuses of international human rights, humanitarian and refugee law in Ethiopia committed since 3 November 2022 by all parties to the conflict. However, from the get-go, the Ethiopian government had opposed to the appointment of the expert, and in April this year, voted to block the UN funding for it unsuccessfully. Since then, Ethiopia has accused the experts of having weaponized human rights for political pressure. In its first report delivered to UN Human Rights Council 51st regular session, 51st regular sessions on 22nd September, ICHREE said there were reasonable grounds to believe that war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed by warring parties in Ethiopia's war, and reasonable grounds to believe that the Tigray region is systematically deprived of material services indispensable for the survival. The report detailed a wide range of gross human rights violations committed against civilians, including Eritrean refugees. The violations are committed to a varied degree by the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, Eritrean Defense Forces, Amara Region Forces, including militia, and the irregular armed group FANO, and the Tigrayan forces in the course of Ethiopia's war. Again, credit at this standard. So that is, something which is unacceptable to Abiy Ahmed and his associate. They don't want any expanding on the investigation. They want to close it. So Abiy Ahmed and his associates will, be free after all this bloodshed, all these atrocities happen in the Tigray region, and that United Nations experts, we also wish to expand to Oromia region, especially Wallagga, East and West Wallagga. So many atrocities carried out by Abiy Ahmed forces in that region, by also forces crossing to Amara, from Amara region to Oromia region by Fano and Amara militia. So we need the extension of that investigation into Oromia region. I don't know why they are silent on that one. We need that investigation. Abiy and his associates are criminals. Their hands are full of blood. I hope one day they will be accounted for. Let's settle this conflict through, this upcoming peaceful dialogue. Then we'll continue, and they will continue their investigation. Who did what, who ordered what in Tigray region. Somebody must be accounted for. How many people killed, how many people raped, how many houses, properties destroyed in Tigray, in Oromia. They should be investigated. They should be accounted for. So we pray. And again, I ask the international community, African Union, all these observers, mediators, to pay attention what is happening in Oromia. As I said, let's continue with a couple of videos, then end today's presentation or update.
Have taken to the streets in protests triggered by the death.
That's Iran. Iran is also facing challenges.
A 22-year-old Kurdish woman died on the 16th of September at the hands of morality police in Tehran. They claim she'd been wearing her hijab incorrectly. Dozens of people have been killed in the protests, which have sparked expressions of support around the world. MEPs condemned the authorities' use of force and called on Iran to respect fundamental rights.
We as European Parliament stand in solidarity with the brave women and men in their fight for women's human and minority rights, for the free flow of information and access to internet, and for a free, secular and democratic republic.
Europa tiene que responder y apoyar a las mujeres que son las que están liderando estas protestas. Mujeres, vida y libertad. Hermanas iraníes, estamos con vosotras.
The EU has demanded a full investigation into Mahsa Amini's death and is considering further restrictive measures against Iran.
Good afternoon. Thank you for staying late for
Okay,
us.
this is the last one, I think.
The United States, Albania, Brazil, France, India, Ireland, Japan, Norway, the Republic of Korea, UAE, and the United Kingdom strongly condemn the DPRK's intermediate-range ballistic missile launch, which overflew Japan on October 4th, and its 7 other ballistic missile launches conducted since September 25th. The DPRK has now launched over 35 ballistic missiles this year alone. These launches violate multiple Security Council resolutions and pose a threat to not only the region, but to the entire international community. The United States and those who have joined me at the podium today remain committed to diplomacy and continue to call on the DPRK to return to dialogue. But we will not stay silent as the DPRK works to undermine the global non-proliferation regime and threaten the international community. The DPRK made its intentions clear in April and September when its leaders signaled an effort to accelerate the DPRK's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and even alluded to preemptive use of nuclear forces. We're witnessing the DPRK's pursuit of this objective. We call on all UN member states, especially council members, to join us in condemning this reckless behavior and in urging the DPRK to abandon in a complete, verifiable, and irreversible manner its unlawful weapons programs and engage in diplomacy toward denuclearization. We also recall the Council's decision in Resolution 2397 referring to further significant measures. We call on member states to fully implement the relevant Security Council resolutions. Let us reaffirm that full implementation of the 1718 committee mandate is necessary to effectively slow down and restrict the DPRK's weapons advancements. Following the DPRK's provocations and escalatory behavior in 2017, the Council came together and unanimously took action to hold the DPRK accountable for its unlawful actions. Now again, the DPRK is testing the Council's resolve, and we must act accordingly. The Council will continue to engage over the course of the next week to find a unified voice and way forward. Thank you.
Okay, so these are the videos I selected for today's update. That's the US and others statement on North Korea ballistic missile test. So let me finish up by saying this. You see the Iranian turmoil just happened because of one lady was killed by Iranian security forces by wrongfully, according to them, just dressing and not in Islamic traditional way. Just one lady. The fire is still burning. The fire is still burning in the whole of Iran. Students, others are keep protesting, even demanding the change of government. And the global community also joining them. You saw on the video the parliament member, European Parliament member lady, cutting her hair in support of or in solidarity with Iranian protesters. When you come to Ethiopia, how many people died under Abiy Ahmed leadership? How many? It's uncountable. What the Ethiopians are doing? Silent. What the global community are doing, except expressing concern, nothing. When you compare one human life with the thousands and the thousands of people dying in Ethiopia, I don't know why Ethiopians are silent. I know the security apparatus is not tougher than Iran. Iran is very tough. Iran is very tough. But despite that, the people came out and still protesting against the government for the death of one individual. But Ethiopians, I don't know what time they're going to wake up after millions of people died. I don't know. They are silent on the war, except some protesters we witnessed during a Recha celebration, and even they are under arrest now. The government used a video to detain those individuals involved by claiming they are, plotting terror attack, blah blah. So that's the situation. So Ethiopians, they should figure out how to challenge Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed leadership, and how to bring him into accountability and his associates into justice, and demand for the end of this bloody war in that country. They must end their silence. I call upon Ethiopians at home and at the global stage to demonstrate, to express constantly. Iran is not a one-day violence. It still continue more than a week now, every day, and in all corners of Iran. That should happen against Abiy Ahmed. That should happen against the killing of Ethiopians through this civil war in Tigray as well as in Oromia region. And again, I would express my wish and hope for the success of the upcoming peace dialogue between Tigray region and Abiy Ahmed. And also I call upon the international community not to ignore the situation in Oromia if they want to see stable, secure, peaceful Ethiopia. They should include in this talk or upcoming talk all fighters or representatives of Oromo concerns into the peace talks if they want to stable, secured, peaceful country, Ethiopia. So that's all I'm going to say for today. And we are, waiting to hear from this peace talk some kind of signed deal to end the siege, the blockade in Tigray. Thank you so much, and be safe. I will be back with other news and update. So long.